criteria, the supplier's business appears to be in a terminal decline based on the import permit figures provided by the minister, which showed in his sectoral debate showing a 90% decline in import permits over the 3 years?
Minister.
Mr. Speaker, the Honourable Member from Central Manchester, as usual, stops short. He mentioned some criteria, but he didn't mention all. But I'm not surprised. So let me help him. The ministry ensured...
So you're answering the question now?
I'm answering the question.
But
the ministry ensured... Please, sir, please. I allowed you in silence. The ministry ensured that prospective suppliers were registered with the National Contracts Commission, NCC, under the category motor vehicles and spares, that they were certified by the Trade Board as used motor vehicle dealer and were tax compliant. The ministry also required a tender bond be submitted by the bidders to ensure only serious prospects submitted bids. The ministry took other protective measures by ensuring that any supplier approved for the award of a contract must submit a performance security prior to the award of the contract, and that any advance payment being made is backed by an advance payment guarantee for the same amount.
Could the minister just refer me to what page in his answers he was reading from a while ago? Or on what question?
Question 4.
But, well, Minister, you have jumped ahead to question 4. I haven't asked my questions yet.
You said you're asking questions on 3 and 4.
4, right.
And you used the part of the answer to question 4. And as usual, you stop short. So I'm only...
But if you, let me finish the supplemental questions in your answer, you can be as extensive as you want. But my specific questions were in the follow-up, and I will come to the performance bid and etc. But my specific questions were the following. Is the ministry at all concerned whether the Ministry of National Security or the police deal with a supplier for whom there might be concerns about criminal intelligence? I would have thought that would have been a standard pre-qualification criteria that the ministry would have used. Or what example would we be setting to our police force? That was the first question. And the second, from the viability of the business perspective, the minister has provided figures which shows a business whose imports have declined by almost 90% between 2013 and 2016. Would the business not be concerned about, would the ministry not be concerned about the viability of the businesses that it's putting a 427 million order with?
Member, do you have any further question?
Yes, I do. Thank you, Mr. Speaker.
Minister Bartlett, Minister Montague, will you record the question that he's asking so he can ask all the questions and you get up one time and answer? Mr. Bunting, will you go through your answers and see what questions, what supplementary questions you wish to ask? Ask all of them, ask the minister to record them, and then you get up an answer. If you have any further, after his answer.
I only have 2 more follow-up answers to 3 more questions. So I can move through them. I can ask them all at one time, and the minister just answer them. Okay, so I will go ahead. Minister, with respect to question 6. Question 6 asked about the supplier, and specifically would the minister disclose the names of the directors and shareholders of the company. The Answer said, regarding the names of the directors and shareholders of O'Brien's International Car Sales and Rentals, this information is publicly available. Well, I don't know that it's published anywhere. But I do know that if you pay for an inquiry at the company's office, you can get some information. So I'm asking the minister if Clement O'Brien Banks is the principal shareholder and director of the company. The minister goes on to explain in that question, Mr. Speaker, that the vehicles were divided into 5 lots to encourage increased participation in the tender process. Yet, notwithstanding the scores, if not hundreds, of used car dealers in Jamaica, only 3 bids were received. How come, Mr. Speaker? Could it be that the most potential bidders realized that this was a set-on, since the bid could not be compared as apples to apples? Was the 90-day delivery for the 200 vehicles impractical? Mr. Speaker, this tender was done in October. The minister's answers now say that the vehicles will be delivered by the end of May. But those who bid in October were bidding on the basis they had 90 days, which would have been the latest January this year. If they had known that they would have had an extension to May, does the minister believe they would have had greater participation in the tender? Question 8. The answers, the supplemental questions to question 8. The minister spoke to an advance payment guarantee from a financial institution. Sorry, to an advance payment guarantee. My question is it from a financial institution, and does it cover the entire amount of the advance? And the second supplemental question for answer 8 is, what exactly is the nature of the performance security? And could he explain how the performance security works? For example, if this new target date of end May comes and all the vehicles are not delivered, then what happens? And finally, Mr. Speaker, supplemental questions for answer 9. The answer to question 9 sets out to prove in Appendix 4 that the total cost of ownership for a new vehicle fleet is higher than for a used vehicle fleet. This is a very important document, Mr. Speaker, because it is the only thing that we have seen to justify this policy of used vehicles. It is what makes this minister brighter than every other minister presiding over every other police force in the world. Because he said in his answers that no other police force. Mr. Speaker, he provided in his answers that he could not find a single police force in the world that has a policy of procuring used vehicles exclusively in any fiscal year. And therefore, he must know something that all these other ministers that preside over police forces or the rest of the world don't know. In fact, he must know something that his colleague, Minister of Justice, who spoke to the new vehicles he bought, the ministry bought for judges,
Mr. Bunting,
than the colleague Minister of Local Government, who bought new garbage trucks and came and boasted he didn't buy used garbage trucks. So this is the document. It's an important document. And here are the follow-up questions from this particular document. A, is it valid to compare 3 years of maintenance for the used cars with 4 years of maintenance for the new? Will the police walk in that gap year? Shouldn't it be comparing 4 years of maintenance versus 4? B, is it valid to use $959,000 per year for the average maintenance cost of the new vehicle with a manufacturer's warranty, but only Is it valid to use a figure of $959,000 per year for the maintenance cost of a new vehicle with a 3-year manufacturer's warranty, but only $1 million per year or 3,000 Jamaican dollars per month more for a vehicle that is 5 years older than the vehicle it is being compared with? And finally, C, is it valid to have on average a residual value of 609,000 Jamaican dollars for a 4-year-old vehicle, but 586,000 for an 8-year-old vehicle, a 4% difference in value for a 4-year-older vehicle? Yet, Mr. Speaker, the minister says, I am the one who doesn't understand numbers. If you understood the implications of what he's suggesting here, you would see that it makes absolutely no sense.
Thank you, Mr. Bunting. Minister, Mr. Bunting has asked some questions.
Mr. Speaker, I want to be sure that the gentleman has finished asking his questions. Mr. Speaker, first of all, I want to thank him from the depths of my heart for confirming that I'm brighter than he is. So I want to thank him for that endorsement. Mr. Speaker,
please, do not, let us
the
not
answer that was provided at question 6 still stands, because parliamentary questions are to get to information that is not available in the public space. As to setting a hand, I would want the gentleman to expand on that, because the process is encoded in the procurement procedures. There's a handbook, and we followed the handbook. So for the many hours that were spent in this very parliament updating the laws for procurement, and I believe the subcommittee was chaired by the member from Northern Clarendon, the Joint Select Committee. And we went through, and that process was accepted by the full House. And the Ministry of National Security, as any other government entity, is obliged to follow that process in the government's procurement handbook. And we did follow it. As to whether a financial institution or which one provided the bond, Mr. Speaker, I think this is really the crux of the matter. This is the crux of the matter. Which financial institution was not used by the successful bidder? That is the question. Mr. Speaker,
the member is not asking.
I know, Mr. Speaker.
He's asking which one. He's not asking. He's not. He says that he's not criticizing the institution. He just wants you to let him know which of the institution.
Mr. Speaker, I am from St. Mary. There is a saying in St. Mary: when you throw a stone in a hog pen. So, a pig pen. He may know it as a pig pen. Mr. Speaker, the financial institution question all evening we have been here. And this is the crux. Which financial institution was not used? And a certain one was not used. And I will do my research and supply the answers to which one was used. Mr. Speaker, I ask what, sir, you ask the questions. Please be quiet and allow me to answer. Sir, my answer. Mr. Speaker, I am answering his question, sir. The nature of the performance, security. Again, I don't want to mislead him, as others have done recently. I will again do some research and come back and supply you with the appropriate answer. With regards to the comparison of the maintenance, again, Mr. Speaker, I don't want to mislead. I will therefore do the necessary research and provide the honourable gentleman with the fulsome answer that he requires.
Mrs. Cook. Motions that may be made at the commencement of public business requiring notice. Motions relating to the sittings of the House. Motions for leave to introduce bills. Presentation of bills without leave of the House first obtained. Public business. Minister Smith.
Mr. Speaker, this afternoon under public business, we will deal with what really ought to be two short presentations. Firstly, from the opposition in relation to item number 4 under government business, the House to continue debate on the motion, a bill entitled an act to amend the Public Debt Management Act. And then item number 19 on the other paper, the provisional collection of tax, general consumption tax order, confirmation, modification, and extension resolution 2017. Once that's concluded, Mr. Speaker, we will continue with the debate, and we have 3 presentations this afternoon, beginning with the Minister of Health, next the member from Clarendon Northwest, and finally the member from Hanover Western.
Minister Shaw.
Today. I am replying today.
Okay, Mr. Phillips.
Thank you. Mr. Speaker, in relation to the amendments to the Public Debt Management Act, I think it is true to say that these amendments have been some time in the making, and that there are, in fact, we support the amendments that are being made. They provide, first of all, for the recognition in statute of changes, administrative changes that have been made in the management of the public debt. The establishment, for example, of the debt management branch of the Ministry of Finance, the formalization of the Public Debt Management Committee and the Public Debt Financing Committee, both operating out of the Ministry of Finance, and provides statutory authority for the Minister of Finance to appoint the Bank of Jamaica as the fiscal agent of the government in accordance with any formal agreement to provide for that. Perhaps most significantly, though, I'd like to point to the provision that the country's debt to GDP ratio attain the 60% by 2025-26. And that is something we all support. What I would want to take the opportunity to point to in this is that there are a range of risks that could affect the country's ability to meet this target for which much sacrifice has already been made and which sacrifice continues to be made. There's the risk of external shocks. There are the climate-based risks. But importantly, I think we need to recognize that the great responsibility rests with those who are directing the management of our macroeconomic affairs. And there is one particular area of risk that I would want to point to, and that relates to a matter that will in fact come up later in the Provisional Collection of Tax Act. Although raising it here, I don't propose to raise it there again. And it relates to the need for equity and balance in our taxation arrangements. And I'm referring once again to a matter that was raised in our budget debate. But I raise it again particularly because it has been specifically referred to by the International Monetary Fund following their most recent review, and that relates to the bauxite sector and the taxation regime in place. And I'm quoting from the country report just published by the IMF, which makes the point that the widening of the exemptions for the bauxite sector has, and I quote, it has resulted in, quote, a revenue loss of over 0.1% of GDP per year, leaving the bauxite sector undertaxed. And equally important in this sentence, potentially undermining the hard-earned gains from the elimination of a range of incentives in 2014. Now, the purpose of the omnibus fiscal incentives measures of 2014 was really, among other things, to establish a level playing field as it relates to various sectors in the economy, so that no particular sector was privileged, so that we weren't, so to speak, the country wasn't picking winners in sectors, but rather allowing for a generalized regime that was non-discriminatory as it related to various sectors to apply. And so there could be predictability in the taxation regime that would apply, and that capital could flow into all sectors based upon their evaluation as to the potential rewards to be had from investing that capital. Overall, the intention was to move towards low rates across a wide base of taxpayers. Now, that was essential, that regime, for the maintenance of competitiveness across industries. because that is essential for if we are to grow, and if we are to grow in a balanced way. And we all want growth. Now, we are faced at this time. We are faced at this time with a situation where we gave up revenues. We gave up revenues in 2008 from the bauxite industry. And quite frankly, everybody supported that. We supported it because Jamaica needed to keep the industry open. We, in fact, extended some of those when we came into office. But now we face the situation where the prices to which the bauxite levy is pegged, the prices of aluminium on the London Metal Exchange, are at the highest levels they have been for many, many years, a decade. Highest prices they have been in a decade. And we in Jamaica are foregoing the levy at the very point when we should be prepared to reap the benefits for the sacrifices that were made from 2008 and beyond. It gives cause for concern. It gives cause for concern, first of all, because while we are relieving the bauxite industry, we are putting taxes, heavy burden, on the ordinary Jamaican taxpayer. It's not right. Secondly, because we seem to be reintroducing a pattern of discretionary waivers exercisable at the whim of the incumbent minister from time to time. And we remember in Standing Finance Committee, it seems as if the revenue had been given up in one ministry and expectations were different in another ministry. We don't want to go back to a regime which depends on the whim, whether of a minister or of a particular administration. The growth which we all seek is best preserved by having a transparent, predictable system of taxation. So, in supporting the legislation, I want to urge that we don't go back to an inefficient system of resource allocation of capital across sectors. We don't want to go back to this situation where you have a few privileged, what you might call tax-preferred sectors that enjoy negotiated concessions, while the vast range of other sectors, non-preferred sectors, are subject to effectively a higher effective rate of taxation. These gains required extensive negotiation during the period of economic reform after 2013, 2014. They were supported by our international partners, and we ought not now to depart from that regime. Mr. Speaker, with those remarks, as I said, we support the basic legislative amendments that are being introduced here. Thank you.
Minister Shaw.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Mr. Speaker, the Minister has supported the bill, and perhaps I could sit down having made that observation. But since he's decided to switch to a speech on taxation instead of the bill itself, let me just respond briefly to a couple of the points that he has made in relation to taxation. He has deliberated a bit on the question of the bauxite levy. And as the minister himself is aware that in times of stress and strain, as we had during the worst global economic crisis that the world had seen in 2008, we had to make decisions there. But what also has to be acknowledged is that the bauxite and alumina sector generally has been challenged since that time. And it has come down to a decision that the government has to make in order to keep the sector moving. We have suffered from closures. In fact, the decision that we made to engage with GISCO, which was started by the previous government, and the question of a levy waiver for a period of time was always on the table, was one of the issues that would have been a game breaker or deal breaker if it was not seriously on the table. And we still believe that as a government we had to make a decision in foregoing that waiver with GISCO for 5 years, whether that was a decision that would be worth it. And we believe it was a decision that is worth it because GISCO is going to invest well over $2 billion United States dollars, and eventually perhaps up to $3 billion, if not more, because they intend, along with doubling the production, literally, in fact, more than doubling the production of aluminum in Jamaica. And right now, the good news is that they're not looking at aluminum with the energy issues. They're looking at alumina, getting the alumina to China, sending back intermediate aluminum products that can then be processed here in Jamaica for aluminum foil, and to supply 80,000 tons of aluminum foil will be exported into the Western Hemisphere. That factory alone will create another 400 to 500 jobs. So we are talking about the creation of between 2,000 and 3,000 jobs when GISCO's operation is at maturity. So certainly in circumstances like that, it was not a difficult decision for us to decide to forego the levy income for 5 years. In the case of, yes, but in the case of even an existing sector, existing company, like Noranda, we inherited a situation where Noranda was literally about to close, and we therefore had to find a creative basis on which to keep it operating. And it went beyond, in that case, it went beyond the issue of just a waiver of the levy, but we negotiated profit sharing out of the Noranda situation. Mark you, in the case of Noranda, the previous Minister of Finance and previous Minister of Mining would want to be careful how they tread in that area, because one of the things they failed to do was to redeem a letter of credit of some 12 million United States dollars that they should have collected and did not collect. And what this government did was to renegotiate and made sure that we are now collecting that 12 million United States dollars from Noranda. So in speaking about the question of the omnibus incentive scheme, the jury is still out on that as to whether it is in fact a competitive taxation model. And right now, as Minister of Finance, I have to indicate that I'm undertaking a review of the omnibus incentive scheme that is taking place, because it requires a review. We have to understand we are operating in a competitive international environment. In the Caribbean region, for example, in many of our territories that are competing with Jamaica, There are no profits tax on hotels. They concentrate their earnings on consumption taxes. That's what they concentrate their earnings on. And some of them are doing better than Jamaica. So I think the taxation issues are something that we have to continually review to make sure that what we do, we're putting ourselves in the best competitive position globally that we can put ourselves in. And, you know, it's the same way, for that matter, that our policy on the 1.5 income tax threshold was criticized by the opposition. And I can now advise that we have successfully implemented phase 2 of the 1.5 plan. And having implemented phase 1 is not mean start the taxation debate, you know. Okay? Having implemented phase 1 of the 1.5 program to the end of the fiscal year, revenue was in fact ahead of target, including revenue in the pay as you earn category. That was actually ahead of target. So that one of the objectives of that program is that it has in fact helped to bring more people into the formal system of PAYE as a result of the implementation of the program. However, Mr. Speaker, the issue at hand is the Public Debt Management Amendment Act 2017, and I now ask that the bill be read a second time.
The question is that the bill be read a second time. Those in favor? Those against? As other.
A bill entitled An Act to Amend the Public Debt Management Act read a second time.
The House will now resolve itself into a committee of the whole House to consider the bill clause by clause. Minister Shaw, I understand you have some amendments. Clause 1.
This is just editorial.
Clause 1. Clause 1.
It's not an amendment. Not an amendment, it's editorial.
So, Chairman, I'm asking the Attorney General to carry us through the amendments.
He's asking the Attorney General to go through.
Go ahead.
Sure.
Go ahead. Go ahead.
Wait.
I put clause 1. Those in favor?
2016 is to change to 2017, Mr. Speaker. 2016 to 2017.
We had a...
That's it. That's it for clause 1, Mr. Speaker. The next amendment is in clause 2.
And I put clause 1 as, we had a correction in clause 1.
Mr. Speaker, we're merely changing the Public Debt Management Amendment Act 2016 to 2017. It's an update that would take place anyway, just pointing it out.
Okay, I now put clause 1. Those in favor?
Aye.
Those against? Ayes have it. I put clause 2.
Clause 2, Mr. Speaker, we're to insert next after the definition of operational risk the following definition. Procedures manual means the set of policies and procedures that outlines the responsibilities of the employees of the debt management branch, comma, identifies, controls, and establishes compliance measures for all debt management operations within the debt management branch. Full stop, close quotations.
I put the amendment to clause 2. Those in favor? Aye. Those against? Ayes have it. I put clause 2 as amended. Those in favor?
Taken on block until
those
we get
against?
to the second schedule.
Ayes have it.
This is second schedule.
I put clause 3.
Second schedule.
What is this one? What is this one?
Second schedule.
As well.
Those in favor?
Aye.
Those against? Ayes have it. Clause 4 to 17. I put clause 4 to 17. Those in favor? Aye. Those against? Ayes have it. I put the title and enacting clause. Those in favor?
Mr. Speaker, there are some amendments to the second schedule, part 3. Page 14, part 3. Under the heading Portfolio Management Office, A, in subparagraph 1(1)A, delete the word PAN and substitute therefore plan. It's a typo on page 17. B, subparagraph 2(I), delete the word managing and substitute therefore the word manage. Subparagraph 2J, delete the words section B and D and substitute therefore the words sections 4B and C. Then we go to page 18 under the debt. I'm sorry, page 2. page 22, under Debt Operations Office.
No, we're having a drink after that. Don't worry about it.
So under the heading Debt Operations Office, delete paragraph 3.1 and substitute therefore the following as subparagraph 3.1. Open bracket, open quotation 1, maintain and update the procedures manual regarding the work of the Debt Operations Office, close quote, full stop. L. Maintain and update the procedure manual. I'm going to give you this when it's done. 25. Right. And then after the heading Compliance Office. Mr. Speaker, Chairman. So it's under the heading Debt Operations Office. We're going to delete paragraph 3L and substitute, therefore, the following as subparagraph 3L. Open quotations, open bracket, L, close bracket. Maintain and update the procedures manual regarding the work of the Debt Management Office. Close quotation, full stop. Not doing it again. Chairman, just to be clear in respect of the proposed amendment under the heading Debt Operations Office, we're deleting paragraph 3L and substituting, therefore, the following as subparagraph 3L. Maintain and update the procedures manual regarding the work of the Debt Operations Office. And then we move to page 26.
Go ahead.
That's in clause 16 you're dealing with.
We're dealing with under the heading of Compliance Office, which starts on page 25, but we move over to page 26 in paragraph 1B. We're just inserting the word "and" after the word "comprehensive."
Thank you very much.
Members, we have an amendment. Members, we're dealing with clause 16, which some amendments have been made. I want to put the amendment to clause 16. Those in favor? Those against? As have it. I put clause 16 as amended. Those in favor?
Aye.
Those against? As have it.
Serious, actually. Serious. I don't like it.
I'm going to again put clause 17. Those in favor? Those against? As have it. In what? No, but we're not going to say it. Do this first. I put the title and enacting clause. Those in favor? Those against? As have it. The question is that I do report the bill as having passed committee stage with 5 amendments. Those in favor? Those against? As have it. I do report the bill as having passed committee stage with 5 amendments. Those in favor? Those in favor? Those against? As of it. Minister.
To move for the third reading of the bill.
Those in favor? Those against? As of it.
A bill entitled An Act to Amend the Public Debt Management Act read a third time and passed.
Mr. Speaker, The Minister of Finance and the Public Service will now deal with the Provisional Collection of Tax, General Consumption Tax Order, Confirmation, Modification, Extension, Resolution 2017.
Minister Shaw.
Mr. Speaker, the matter has to do with the Provisional Collection of Tax, VCT Order 2017. The House will recall that a number of tax measures were imposed, and under that imposition, Mr. Speaker, pursuant to Section 3, Subsection 3 of the Act, an order made under that subsection continues for a period of 6 months following the date of publication in the Gazette. However, this is subject to Section 4, which provides that the order will cease to have effect within the 6-month period if it is not confirmed with or without modification by resolution of this Honourable House within the next 30-day period in which the House sits after the date of publication of the order in the Gazette. The House is also empowered by the proviso to Section 3, Subsection 3 of the Act to authorize by resolution the continuance in force of that order for an additional period of 3 months, hence giving the provisional order a maximum life of 9 months. Consequently, Mr. Speaker, in conformity with the Provisional Collection of Tax Act, the resolution which is proposed seeks to confirm with modification the Provisional Collection of Tax, General Consumption Tax Order 2017 and provide for the continuation of the order for a further 3 months to allow for the permanent legislation in respect of the measures to be brought to this Honourable House. Mr. Speaker, since the publication of the order, it has also become apparent that some adjustments are necessary. Consequently, the following modifications are proposed. Under Section 6, Mr. Speaker, it is proposed to delete subsection 8 and substitute, therefore, the following as subsection 8. In subsection 7, contract of insurance includes a policy of insurance and the renewal of a policy of insurance, group health insurance, and the renewal of group health insurance, but does not include a policy of life insurance, reinsurance, or health insurance other than group health insurance. This provision relates to the imposition of GCT on group health insurance, and the modification has been done to make this section clearer and in keeping with the policy. Mr. Speaker, I wish to point out that the effective date for this measure was April 3, 2017, and that it was inadvertently omitted from the resolution table. So April 3, 2017 should have been on the resolution. Mr. Speaker, in terms of the first schedule, Part 2, the date when the first 150 kilowatt hours in any month of supply of electricity services to residential customers for private and domestic use takes effect is being changed from April 3, 2017 to April 6, 2017. The amended date of April 6 has been agreed in consultation with the JPSCO to allow for their systems to be able to efficiently administer the new threshold. And Mr. Speaker, in the second schedule, Part A, the description of goods for tariff heading 24.03 was amended to read smoking and other manufactured tobacco and manufactured tobacco substitutes. This amendment corrects a description in the provisional order. The rates of tax also on automotive diesel oil and ultra-low sulfur have been adjusted. The amendment has been agreed in consultation with Petrojam to reduce the tax distortion between automotive diesel oil and ultra-low sulfur diesel oil, the latter being a product that is not produced currently by Petrojam. So the automotive diesel oil has been reduced in the terms of the rate, and the ultra-low sulfur diesel oil has been increased. Thank you very much, Mr. Speaker. I ask for the approval of this resolution.
Mr. Phillips.
Mr. Speaker, I think the position of the opposition is clear. We didn't support the original measures, and we don't support these measures now. So, in that regard, my comments will be brief. But I still want to take the opportunity, Mr. Speaker, to urge on the Minister and the Prime Minister that in keeping with I think what is a shared intention to modernize our overall macroeconomic management, that we take a look at the overall approach to the imposition of taxation. Predictability in the tax regime is perhaps the most desired characteristic sought by investors, domestic, but even more so foreign. We all operate, they all operate in a global market where prices are for the most part set. Prices for hotel rooms set years in advance. Prices for other commodities determined in the world market. And where industries can accommodate in terms of their business plan, but most of all, they need a predictable environment. I think that all sides, this side, that side, at various points in time, have approached taxation by way of what I might call taxation by surprise. Surprise meaning that the investor community doesn't know until the minister, a minister, not despite your enviable record, I am not singling you out in this regard. Most jurisdictions have moved beyond that. And so I want to urge once again that we consider utilizing the Committee on Tax Measures or some variant of it that would enable us to look to project down the track what your revenue needs are, what your options are as we go forward. Because I can say definitively on the basis of consultations during my tenure there and subsequently, even recently, that this uncertainty about what the cost of transportation, the cost of fuel, the cost of electricity will be from time to time is an unhealthy situation from the vantage point of the investor. And that we need to find some way of reducing the levels of unpredictability, reducing the level of surprise and uncertainty in the way that we approach this. So with that, Mr. Speaker, as I said, we didn't support the measures at the outset. It's a continuation of proposals that we have debated here. We don't intend to debate them again, but I make those comments to the Minister.
Thank you very much, Mr. Speaker. I thank the honourable member for his comments, and I think the issue of looking again at the tax committee is something that I'm prepared to examine, because you see, we are in a dynamic process at this time in taxation anyway, because we have a firm and irrevocable policy of moving from direct to indirect taxation. And so that we have to bear in mind that indirect taxation measures are going to mean more indirect parts to maintaining our revenue, a small amount from a larger number of people is where we're going. But it is a fact that we have to embrace the opportunity to calibrate a tax policy so that it doesn't cause unnecessary shocks and surprises in the system, which is anti-business in terms of business planning purposes. But, Mr. Speaker, in moving the resolution, I just wish to make the amendment. Where is it? No, what that has to do with this one has to do with insurance policy. I just want to say that when we tabled the amendment in the House, Mr. Speaker, we had omitted on page 3 of the resolution under the schedule, we did not put the effective date at section 6, which is the effective date is April 3, 2017 for the insurance. Huh? Well, so, Mr. Speaker, I'm moving for that amendment to the schedule before I move for the resolution to be adopted.
Members, I put the amendments as put by the Minister. Those in favor? Aye. Those against? The ayes have it. I put the resolution as amended. Those in favor? Aye. Those in favor? Aye. Those against? The ayes have it. Before I proceed to the next item, I wish to recognize a number of visitors in the gallery, which we should have done earlier. A former member of Parliament and some officials, students and friends of parliamentarians. Will you welcome them for me, please?
Mr. Speaker, as we indicated earlier, we'll continue the sectoral debate this afternoon with 2 presentations. The first is from the Minister of Health, Member of Parliament West Central, St. Catherine, and the other will be from the Member Honourable Western.
Dr. Tufton.
Mr. Speaker, I am sure that you would endorse my first comments, which is to express appreciation for the lengthy wait by those in the gallery who may have come to see either myself or the member on that side. I just want to say, with your permission, we appreciate their patience. Mr. Speaker, this marks the second occasion on which I have been privileged to address this Honourable House as Minister with the portfolio responsibility for the health of our nation. Let me begin by thanking the Honourable Prime Minister for his continued confidence in me to serve as Minister in this critical area. I want to place on record to Mr. Speaker the support that I have had from my Cabinet colleagues and other members of this House in what has been a difficult year in the health sector. To you, Mr. Speaker, you have been fair in your deliberations, and I want to recognize and thank you for that. Mr. Speaker, to the staff of the Ministry of Health, led by the Permanent Secretary and the Chief Medical Officer, let me commend them for remaining committed to the cause and for enduring the many challenges we have had to face. The truth is, sir, I have demanded a lot from them over the period, and they have continually risen to the occasion. To the people and executive of my constituency, Mr. Speaker, West Central, St. Catherine, a number of whom are here, they are the reason why I'm here, and so I place on record my appreciation to them. In the gallery today, we have the councillors, three councillors, Councillors McCook, Councillor Johnson, and Councillor Suku. My special assistants, Omar Francis and Nicole Banks, and my office staff, or permanent staff, Raquel Wright and Yvette McDonald, as well as some other supporting members. I want to just recognize them and thank them for their support. Last but by no means least, Mr. Speaker, I want to recognize my family, my wife who is here, and son Adam, and the other two, Kimberly and Charles, who are unfortunately absent today, but I know they have really been the foundation of my support, and I am eternally grateful to them. Mr. Speaker, given the structure and time allotted for these sectoral debates, I cannot possibly speak to all the matters concerning public health. I have therefore tabled a report with details on what I consider important areas on which the public should be updated. This report, Mr. Speaker, also acts as a scorecard of commitments made and kept by the administration in this portfolio area. I'm going to just mention 3 or 4 areas that is contained, Mr. Speaker, in this report, but it will be available clearly because it will be tabled to all the members here, as well as to others who are interested to be updated. In the area of health prevention, we launched the Jamaica Moves campaign, Mr. Speaker, to promote increased physical activity along with proper nutrition as a preventative measure against non-communicable diseases, lifestyle diseases. And each of my colleagues in this House, Mr. Speaker, I know that some are already equipped, will be given a little encouragement for themselves to engage in the Just Moving campaign. I want to say that this campaign actually is a truly bipartisan national event, and I want to recognize Member Robinson on that side, Member Nita Headley on that side, and on this side, my colleague Marissa Dalrymple Filbert, Mike, all on this side, Mr. Speaker, who have been extremely supportive of this initiative. As we continue to tackle NCDs, Mr. Speaker, we have in hand the report from the National Food Task Force with recommendations that will be actioned, including national consultation starting this year. Included also in this report, the Pan American Health Organization has completed, Mr. Speaker, a comprehensive report on health information systems and are now developing a schedule for implementation, which we hope to begin this calendar year. Similarly, our Adopt a Clinic program has been developed, and we are now engaged in robust negotiations with local and diaspora groups and individuals for at least 60 of our primary healthcare facilities to be adopted. This was announced again last year. In the area of oral health, we launched our national dental sealant and fluoride garnish program in schools, resuming, Mr. Speaker, what was abandoned about 20 years ago. This is dental sealant and fluoride garnish to our young people, for our young people in schools. We have started that initiative again because we think oral hygiene is important, and that has started and will continue during the course of this year. In the area of vector or mosquito control, Mr. Speaker, we have launched, as was promised, a mosquito control and research unit, a collaboration between our vector control unit at the Ministry of Health and the University of the West Indies through their Department of Nuclear Sciences and Tropical Medicine. This collaborative effort will focus on applied research to tackle the continued threat of mosquito-borne diseases that are a serious public health challenge. In fact, the United States Agency for International Development, USAID, has committed and already funded the employment of an entomologist for 1 year to head up that unit, Mr. Speaker, and we are grateful to them for that. Mr. Speaker, so this document contains many other critical areas which time would not allow me to expand on, and I commend it to my colleagues here for their own information and education. Mr. Speaker, during the course of the last year, many questions were asked and headlines written expressing concerns about issues in public health. Too often, conclusions were drawn based on inadequate or inaccurate information. I fully, Mr. Speaker, respect the rights of stakeholders in the media or opposition or anywhere else to probe and to seek clarification and answers, as this is an important part of our democratic tradition. And so in the interest of transparency and accountable governance, the ministry has developed a document which will be published quarterly and tabled in this House called Vitals, Vitals for Vital Statistics, which will provide important data to the public on the performance of the sector. I'm happy to make this document available again as document number 2, Mr. Speaker, which will be available on a quarterly basis. And this document, Mr. Speaker, will have everything from the performance of hospitals in terms of the number of diagnostic tests, births, infant mortality, operations done, all the critical activities that will provide not just this House, but members of the public as to the performance of the health sector on a quarterly basis. I think it's important, Mr. Speaker, because public health is everybody's business, and we must dispel that notion that we in public health have anything to hide. Whether it's good or not so good news, it is in the interest of the public to know and to probe in the interest of transparency and good governance. Vital. It is vital, vital statistics. Mr. Speaker, I want to spend the rest of my time addressing 5 critical areas of public health. These are the patient customer service experience, our hospital infrastructure, efforts at enhancing financing of public health for sustainability, brief update on reform, and our attempts at coping with critical personnel challenges, particularly specialist nurses. Mr. Speaker, last year we had 1.3, and I'm rounding the numbers now, 1.3 million visits to our hospitals and 1.5 million visits to our health centers or clinics. Of the hospital visits, some 669,000 were for accident and emergency services, 338,000 diagnostic imaging services, X-rays, CT scans, MRI, over 6 million lab tests, and 189,374 persons were admitted to hospital for care. For patients admitted, Mr. Speaker, the average length of stay is approximately 6 days. And of that 189, just under 190,000 persons who spend time in our public health institutions, in our hospitals, 95.5% of those persons were treated, released, and sent back home to their families and their loved ones. Unfortunately, just under 5% did not make it. Let me say here and now, Mr. Speaker, that our public health system of approximately 1,300 doctors, 4,600 nurses and midwives, 185,000 dental staff, 2,500 paramedical and allied health workers, and 2,600 administrative and support staff have performed well over the last year to support all of these activities in public health. Unfortunately, Mr. Speaker, we rarely hear when things go well, when lives are saved, or even the acts of heroism. In some instances, Jamaicans die waiting for service in our public health system. This clearly is not good enough. Long delays and at times the absence of compassion in how we administer service can oftentimes give the impression that generally the system is unresponsive and worse, that we do not care. Mr. Speaker, we have to change Mr. Speaker, last year, in the interest of improving customer service, we embarked on a program to reduce wait time and enhance the patient service experience, starting with our accident and emergencies departments. 6 hospitals and their closest health centers were targeted. The hospitals being Kingston Public, Bustamante, Spanish Town, St. Anne's Bay, Cornwall, Mandeville, and Maypen. The emergency rooms, Mr. Speaker, were targeted because they represent approximately 50% of persons who seek assistance throughout the country. Mr. Speaker, the objective of the program was to improve the processing of patients who visit A&E. This is achieved through improvements in the triage or the pre-processing before a doctor tends to the specific need of the patient. And this triage process determines the genuine emergency cases and the transfer of those cases that are determined not to be emergency to the targeted health centers on the program. Further, Mr. Speaker, under this program, we upgraded the customer service area to give quicker attention to persons who came in to the A&E. Mr. Speaker, we also strengthened the health centers to facilitate the increased traffic, the corresponding health center to those hospitals, by extending opening hours, increasing the physical capacity to manage more patients, and increasing the range of services offered in these health centers. These health centers, Mr. Speaker, are Slipe Road Comprehensive, Glen Vincent, St. Jago Park, St. Anne's Bay, Mount Salem, Mandeville, and Maypen Health Centers. Mr. Speaker, the project commenced in May 2016 with an estimated cost of some $353 million, of which $228 million was for additional staff and $88 million was for infrastructure, furniture, and equipment. Critical to this improved process, Mr. Speaker, was to extend the opening hours of these primary health care facilities. And on average, the opening hours was extended by 4 hours. So from 4:30 to 8:30, in some instances up to 10 p.m. at night. The extended waiting hours in all the targeted health centers, Mr. Speaker, were fully implemented by October 2016. I'm happy to report here today in this House that during that period, up to the last month, Mr. Speaker, some 35,000 visits were recorded in the extended hours of service in health centers up to last month. This represents, Mr. Speaker, a 17% increase in utilization of these health centers. The extended hours allowed persons to be able to visit the health centers after regular work hours, thus decreasing the visits to the accident and emergency rooms, and by extension, decreasing the daytime congestion in some of these health centers. Mr. Speaker, over the next year, we will put in place facilities to track time to triage in all 7 hospitals, which will give us additional information to improve that process. Additionally, Mr. Speaker, this year, we intend to add 4 additional hospitals and related health centers under this program, which is extended opening hours, extended services, and triaging from the hospital accident and emergency to the health center in order to get prompter service. These hospitals are Savannah Lamar, Princess Margaret, Black River, and Onoto Bay Hospital and their nearest health centers. We are working, Mr. Speaker, to improve patient care, and an important part of that is to reduce the time that people wait when they go into the accident and emergency room to seek attention from the public health system. Another area, Mr. Speaker, which for us is demonstrating results and will improve patient care and the patient-customer relations is the area of public-private sector partnership for the distribution of drugs. On December 19, 2016, Mr. Speaker, the pilot public-private sector partnership program was launched in Maypen, Clarendon, then extended to Kingston and Montego Bay. Under this program, the filling of prescriptions for public patients is outsourced, as we had committed, to private pharmacies under certain guidelines. Mr. Speaker, Mr. Speaker, we expect some 50 pharmacies to be on this program during the course of this financial year. Currently, we have piloted with 17 pharmacies, and the results are very encouraging. The first 12 weeks up to April 1 of this program, over 7,000 prescriptions were filled, and with an estimated value of some $5,000 per prescription, it means, Mr. Speaker, that we distributed some 35 million worth of drugs through these public pharmacies to public patients. In addition to this, Mr. Speaker, while the outsourcing of the filling of public prescriptions by selected private pharmacies has increased in a number of service locations, the drug-served pharmacies are also introducing several initiatives to improve customer service. These initiatives are currently in effect and will expand in the current financial year. And I just want to mention 3 quick ones. Drop-off and pick-up service. This service is available at all 17 drug-served locations. During the last financial year, Mr. Speaker, some 12% of the 124,000 prescriptions were filled using the drop-off and pick-up service in the 17 drug-served windows. The other area, Mr. Speaker, is implementation of an automatic scheduling of drug refills for patients regularly accessing NHF pharmacies. This service was introduced in the 3rd quarter of the financial year, and to date, approximately 6,000 prescriptions have been filled using this service. And thirdly, another area of reform is electronic submission of prescription via WhatsApp. This was introduced in the 4th quarter of 2016-2017 and is a centrally operated service with pickup at any drug-served location. To date, some 800 patients have accessed their service, which we will promote during the course of this year. And Mr. Speaker, for those here who depend on the NHF for their drugs, the WhatsApp number, if you want to use this service, is 532-5007. It is anticipated, Mr. Speaker, that of the 17 drug-served pharmacies, we expect some 35% of outpatient services to be distributed through these new methods of distribution to patients. In other words, Mr. Speaker, as it relates to public drugs going to public patients, between the public-private partnership arrangement that we have instituted, we have started and will continue, and the reforms within the drug-served window, there should be no wait, or certainly not long waits, for patients who have been seen by a doctor and require their drugs in order to treat with their particular case. That's progress, Mr. Speaker, and we're proud of that. And I want to thank the NHF for working diligently in order to support these programs with the Ministry of Health. Mr. Speaker, I turn to volunteerism and compassionate care, again on the same theme of improving the customer service experience in our public health institutions. A critical customer service issue that we must improve is how to address complaints from patients or clients who interact with the public system, as well as how we administer service to include compassion or to show empathy to those we serve. Last year, I announced a compassionate care initiative. Mr. Speaker, we are working on that. To achieve this, the ministry started a pilot program at the Kingston Public Hospital, as well as developed a compassionate care and volunteerism policy and an action plan for the implementation in all regional health authorities. The policy, Mr. Speaker, is currently with the Cabinet Office, and I'm expecting to discuss and hopefully solicit the support of the Cabinet for introduction over the next couple of months of a compassionate care and volunteerism policy to support the empathy that is necessary as we administer to our public patients. Complaints, Mr. Speaker, and how we deal with complaints in the public health system is another area that we need to deal with. Complaints reported by patients or their relatives about the quality of service in public health is always concerning to us. We had in 2015 some 2.8 million visits to our healthcare primary facilities or hospitals. Similarly so in 2016. When I checked, Mr. Speaker, to determine the number of formal complaints lodged, in 2015 there was 140, in 2016 173, as a percentage of overall visit, complaints lodged during those 2 years are 0.005% of overall visits in 2015, 0.006% in 2016. Now, by any standard, that shows a relatively good track record. The challenge is, and I think we all should be prepared to accept this, that not everybody who is disgruntled lodges a formal complaint. In fact, I am prepared to accept that most people who are disgruntled, but more so, Mr. Speaker, more so, when you dissect the complaints that were lodged to determine how those complaints have been dealt with, in 2015, of the 140 complaints, just 16% have been resolved. In fact, 58% still are under investigation. This is from 2015. In 2016, up to 44% still unresolved. So, Mr. Speaker, if we are going to improve the client or patient service experience, we have to do a couple of things. We have to improve the process that allows for formal complaints to be lodged so that patients are aware of this process. Secondly, we have to minimize the inclination to have a complaint by improving the customer service in these hospitals. And secondly, or thirdly, we need to quickly resolve these complaints once they are lodged. Mr. Speaker, we are working on that. And I want to just pause a bit to say here that the complaints are not always from the patient to the administration. Sometimes there are many times when healthcare professionals have to complain about patients also. And in fact, we have seen some incidents, Mr. Speaker, that has been elevated to violent reaction against our healthcare professional, and that's something we cannot tolerate and will not tolerate, and it works both ways. Mr. Speaker, I have taken the responsibility on to focus on how we deal with complaints, both lodging and solving, during the course of this year by appointing a client's complaints overseer headed by a senior member of my staff operating out of my office. This individual will firstly review the current process by which complaints are lodged and dealt with the view of making recommendations to improving that process by establishing appropriate protocols to lodge formal complaints. The complaints overseer will also be responsible to assess monthly reports and be empowered to investigate or follow up any unresolved issues involving patients and public health institutions. Part of the process, Mr. Speaker, will be to educate the population as to what the procedure is to lodge a complaint, and we intend to place notices in the public, in the hospitals and clinics, with a toll-free number, 188 call MOH, in order for persons to lodge their complaints, Mr. Speaker. We're hoping to improve the customer service relations using this method. Mr. Speaker, I want to turn now to infrastructure, which is a topical issue over the last number of months due to the issues at Cornwall Regional Hospital. Cornwall Regional Hospital, Mr. Speaker, in St. James perhaps was the biggest challenge that we face in public health during the course of the last year. It's the only type A hospital, meaning offering specialized services in Western Jamaica, and basically 5 or 6 parishes depend on that institution, the population of 5 or 6 parishes. We can say today, and I say so guardedly, but I think we're justified in saying that we are no longer in the danger zone, in that we have moved from experiencing a crisis to having figured out what the crisis is and how we should go about resolving that crisis. And so I'm prepared to say we have made progress in this regard. The issue is a lot clearer to us. Mr. Speaker, this has not been an easy task. We consulted, we communicated, we monitored, we planned for the short, medium, and long term to address the long-standing issues at Cornwall Regional. Today, all outpatient services have been relocated, and we are seeing up to 600 patients each day from locations other than the main building that is under investigation and repair. Most of the supporting services, like lab services, have also been relocated and are operational. Mr. Speaker, the biggest challenge that we face is in patient care. and we have now relocated parts of this service while securing a section of the facility that would be difficult to relocate. We have also made progress, Mr. Speaker, in terms of the medium to longer term plan for repairs. We have now signed a contract with the United Nations Office for Project Services, UNOPS, as project managers for the rehabilitation of the process. We have selected now a contractor through limited competitive bidding to do the redesign, the assessment and redesign of the new vent system to be put in place. UNOPS will proceed as part of their mandate and contract to assess and manage the corrective measures for plumbing, electrical and general building repairs, and we will be replacing also the digital system, the X-ray diagnostic unit. Mr. Speaker, the UNOPS is also charged with looking at workflow of the facility and providing training for capacity building in critical areas such as maintenance. Mr. Speaker, it has been a challenging period, but I believe, I'm pretty sure, that at the end of it, and it should last about a year, Cornwall Regional Hospital will be restored to its former glory and provide the type of services that it provides. Mr. Speaker, there are so many individuals, institutions that should be recognized for leading or supporting this charge to date. It's not about me, it's not even about the Ministry of Health alone, even though the workers at Cornwall Regional have done an amazing job to control the challenges. But I want to recognize, Mr. Speaker, the Pan American Health Organization, the United States Embassy, ministries, local government, education, national security, Jamaica Defense Force, UDC, Food for the Poor, Missionaries for the Poor, West Jamaica Conference of Seventh-day Adventists, the St. James Municipal Corporation, the Holy Trinity Church, Barnett Clinic, Montego Bay Hospital, and Sam Sharp Teachers College, Mr. Speaker. Those are stakeholders in this process because they came on board and they offered support, and we want to thank them for that. Mr. Speaker, let me also say, I think it's important to say it, that as it relates to the opposition's stance on this issue, I want to recognize and commend the spokesperson on health, Member Daly, who he and I have consulted on the issue. We don't always agree because he has expressed his disagreement on some of the issues, but in the main, I believe the opposition has been a responsible opposition on this issue, and I want to say thanks to him for that. But you know, Mr. Speaker, the Cornwall Regional Hospital experience is symptomatic of how we have generally approached the maintenance of health infrastructure. Mr. Speaker, the truth is that we react to crisis rather than act proactively to avoid a crisis. Frankly speaking, this reactionary approach is a norm for us, even when it comes to our personal health, because we only go to the doctor when we are sick. We don't take precautionary measures, and even when lifestyle habits are predictably bad for us, Mr. Speaker, we ignore it until it's late. We have a country where just over 20% of the population have sought to purchase health insurance to secure them for the day when they need it. By extension, having the majority of the country depending on the public health system. Mr. Speaker, this is a dangerous posture that we have in our country, particularly in an environment where healthcare costs are increasing so rapidly. So, Mr. Speaker, our current attitude to public health administration has to experience a paradigm shift, needs to experience a paradigm shift. We must get our country to focus on prevention rather than cure, prevention in ensuring personal health, prevention to avoid the collapse of our health infrastructure. In support of this paradigm shift or attitudinal shift, there are three fundamental areas that this administration will focus its attention on, Mr. Speaker. Firstly, we will embark over the next 2 years on a major overhaul of our current health infrastructure by scoping, technical scoping, repairing, replacing, and upgrading a number of critical institutions across the country. Secondly, we will complete and begin implementation of the 10-year strategic plan, which, among other things, will restructure the organizational arrangement of public health to strengthen areas such as maintenance, project management, procurement, and inventory control, as well as relook at efficiencies of the structure, the regional health authority structure. And thirdly, we will expand the national health insurance scheme under the NHF, focusing on stakeholder participation, and importantly, Mr. Speaker, the need for Jamaicans to take personal or greater personal responsibility for their health. Mr. Speaker, in terms of the first objective, scoping, repairing, upgrading, and replacing critical infrastructure, it is our intention to utilize some $3.5 billion over 2 years, primarily drawn from the reserves of the National Health Fund to facilitate this expenditure. Let me pause here because I know the question will be asked, what will this do to the viability of the National Health Fund? The Health Fund, Mr. Speaker, has $10 billion in reserves. And to be totally cautious about this, what we did, Mr. Speaker, we commissioned a study by KPMG to determine the entity's viability based on future expenditures and projected revenue stream. Following that study, we concluded that a withdrawal of some $3.5 billion over 2 years would allow that entity to meet its obligations up to the next 10 years comfortably, all other things being equal. Mr. Speaker, given the reforms that are pending, including a national health insurance scheme, we are comfortable with that position. What is important is that we cannot continue to limp along with an ailing infrastructure and pretend that we are able to respond to the health challenges that our people face. We have to do something about it, and we have to start now, Mr. Speaker. So, Mr. Speaker, the following are a few of the projects that will be undertaken over the next 2 years, starting immediately. The obvious one being the upgrading of the Cornwall Regional Hospital, as discussed. Next, number 2, technical scoping work to be done on Spanish Town, St. Anne's Bay, and Mandeville hospitals with the view to progressively upgrading these facilities from Type B to Type A hospitals, which will allow more services to be allowed. Thirdly, technical and scoping work on Maypen Hospital to upgrade from a Type C to a Type B hospital. Fourthly, Mr. Speaker, the commissioning by June this year of the Linear Accelerator or Cancer Treatment Center at Cornwall Regional Hospital, and by the first quarter of 2017, a similar facility at St. Joseph's Hospital. Those are very expensive equipment that started before my time. $14 million spent. We intend to open those facilities, one in May, the end of May, the other first quarter of next year, because we need specialist support for cancer patients in the area of oncology. Mr. Speaker, we're also looking at a public-private partnership arrangement for the construction of the Ministry of Health corporate headquarters. This, Mr. Speaker, we intend to locate on the compound of St. Joseph's Hospital. We have already submitted the plan to PIMSEC for consideration, and a permission has been given for a business case study to be developed. 6, Mr. Speaker, the construction that we all know about of the Children and Adolescent Hospital in Western Jamaica, a gift of the Chinese government, and I want to thank Madam former Prime Minister Portia Simpson-Miller, who was instrumental in that gift being given. We are now at the stage where we will have to take on some of the expenses of the pre-construction work. We want to break ground for that facility this year, this financial year. It will be a critical part of expanding capacity, not just in the West, but for the country. And 7th, Mr. Speaker, collaborate with the University of the West Indies to develop a center of excellence with specific focus on cardiology and neurology. Mr. Speaker, in addition to those major projects, we will immediately embark on a number of smaller but important projects that are critical to efficient functioning of many of our institutions. Mr. Speaker, what has happened is that a number of our health institutions currently have been allowed to deteriorate so badly because of lack of maintenance. There are projects that are project ready. The scoping, everything has been done, but the resources have not been allocated. With the support of my cabinet, Mr. Speaker, and the Honourable Prime Minister, we have allocated $600 million to deal with a number of those projects across the health system. And there's a table here, which I won't go through because of time, But for example, upgrading the elevators at National Chest Hospital, KPH, and Spanish Town, procuring critical equipment for hospitals in St. Anne, St. Mary, and Portland, repairing the roof at Maypen Hospital, repairing the roof at Mandeville Hospital. And you're talking about $30 million, $50 million, $39 million. Mr. Speaker, we're taking those projects and we aggressively, this year, we are going to put that resource into improving our institution. Mr. Speaker, quickly on reform and an update on reform. We are moving ahead as committed. We are moving ahead with the reform of the health system. Work has commenced. As was announced last year, we had intended to get the contractors engaged to develop a 10-year national strategic plan for health. The process of restructuring the health system will, among other things, Mr. Speaker, provide data on human resource requirements, will guide the public sector reform process regarding the needs and appropriateness of human resources for the health system, including future requirements for health professionals. And this 10-year strategic plan, Mr. Speaker, will fit nicely in some of the work that we're doing as it relates to infrastructure development. Mr. Speaker, one of the areas that I want to notify the country on, and this House, is the issue of the efficient functioning of our current structure involving the 4 regional health authorities. Mr. Speaker, I am hoping to be in a position this year to announce an overhaul of the regional health authorities. Anecdotally, Mr. Speaker, let me say there's going to be a need for consolidation through either shared services or the possible merging of authorities. The reality is that there is too much duplication in the system, and in areas such as maintenance, procurement, and project management, there is too little capacity, and by extension, the source of some of the challenges that we're facing now with some of our health infrastructure. Mr. Speaker, I anxiously await the recommendations from the consultants who are actively working. In another 3 or 4 months, I'll come back to this House and I'll make the results or the recommendations known. I want to turn quickly, Mr. Speaker, to a discussion around national health insurance. The discussion around free health care has generated mixed reviews from various stakeholders and commentators, as there is a practical recognition, Mr. Speaker, that increasing health care costs and the government's inability to afford the ideal expenditure of approximately 6% of GDP, according to WHO benchmark standards, has not been possible. Frankly speaking, Mr. Speaker, it is understandable. If free means long delays, poor quality, or no access for critical services, it is very understandable why many persons would question the practicality of the term free health care. We must, Mr. Speaker, I think, be honest in this discussion. The truth is that health care is not free. The question is, who pays? That's the fundamental issue. It is our belief, Mr. Speaker, that the government has a responsibility to ensure that no Jamaican who cannot afford health services is left to die for a lack of access to such a service. In other words, we must guarantee, as a country, universal access to all. Mr. Speaker, we should never return to the days when poor Jamaicans are afraid to go to the hospital because they don't have the user fee to pay at the registration. The government is against that. However, Mr. Speaker, as Jamaicans, we must begin to understand the importance of taking personal responsibility for our health, for our personal health. Personal responsibility means healthy habits of diet and exercise, getting regular checkups to know your health status, and critically also, Mr. Speaker, where you can make provisions long before you go to the hospital. You must make those provisions so that you can prepare to deal with some of the expenses that are related to providing health care. Mr. Speaker, this is what the National Health Insurance Scheme announced by this government is all about and will do. The National Health Insurance Scheme is an appropriate response to what some would argue the impracticality of a literal interpretation of free healthcare. And I think a lot of the country has given a literal interpretation to free healthcare, when frankly speaking, there is a cost to healthcare, and we must accept that there is a cost. And all of us have to understand that even in just taking preventative measures by taking care of ourselves, we have a responsibility to minimize that cost for our own benefit and by extension, the benefit of the country. Mr. Speaker, we're working aggressively at this National Health Insurance Scheme. Consultants from the WHO and POW have generated a first report looking at the scheme, looking at the options. So we have gotten that first report. We are now in the process of recruiting another internationally experienced consultant who will work with the committee that has been established to drive the deliverables of this scheme. We intend, Mr. Speaker, in keeping with our commitment, to have a plan this year, and will update this House accordingly on the implementation schedule moving towards a national health insurance scheme. Mr. Speaker, my final section now deals with healthcare professionals. An important component of the 10-year strategic plan is to assess the personnel requirements of our health system with a view of achieving optimal levels of suitable personnel in areas that are needed. As a country, we have done well, and we should be proud of training of our healthcare professionals, but frankly speaking, we have been victims of poor retention. Our nurses are the most recruited internationally, resulting in a crisis in service delivery, particularly in certain areas of specialization. Mr. Speaker, earlier this year I raised the issue at an executive board meeting of the WHO in Geneva, Switzerland, and received support for my recommendations for countries to collaborate in the training and employment placement of specialist nurses. This, Mr. Speaker, this is not just a challenge for Jamaica. The reality is that the WHO has said that by 2030, the world needs to train another 40 million healthcare professionals if they are to keep up with the demand on the healthcare system. Nurses being an important part of this. Developed countries, developing countries, we're all having this challenge of having adequate numbers to deal with the demand that we have. I want to make it clear, because I was misunderstood when I spoke to this earlier, that I certainly support the mobility of labor. We have no difficulty with that. But we are also challenged by the critical shortages that we face. Almost finished.
Minister, the Speaker, the member time for speaking has expired. You may take step to have him conclude his presentation.
Mr. Speaker, I move that the Minister's time be extended by 5 minutes to allow him to conclude his presentation.
The motion is that the member's time be extended by 5 minutes. Those in favor? Those against? Yes, have it. Minister Tufton, you may conclude your presentation as directed by the motion.
Thank you very much, Mr. Speaker, and thanks to my colleagues for allowing me the additional time. So, Mr. Speaker, this issue of healthcare professionals is absolutely a critical one for the world, not just for Jamaica. And in our case, the critical care nurses. So I was saying, Mr. Speaker, we support the mobility of labor, but we are also challenged by the critical shortages that we face, and we need to do something to address that shortage. The calls, and there have been many calls, I see people on television giving expert positions on why it is that we are not training more nurses and export them. Well, you know, if it were as easy as that, I'm sure many persons would have been doing it to date. The reality is we can train, Mr. Speaker, only to the extent that we have the clinical infrastructure for those nurses to be exposed to the clinical aspect of the training. So you can bring them in a lecture theater, you can give them all the theory, but unless they are exposed to a hospital, if it's a specialist nurse in ICU, they have to be exposed to an ICU bed and go through the procedures for an extended period, 6 months in some cases, sometimes beyond, before they can qualify. That has been the bottleneck for us, Mr. Speaker. We cannot train because of the lack of clinical space. So that's the other benefit of upgrading our infrastructure, because we will now provide more training possibilities for more nurses and others to be trained. In the meantime, Mr. Speaker, the only option that is available to us, there are a few, to bring them in, import where we can, and we are grateful to those countries like Cuba that have actually filled a void which otherwise would not have been filled, and patients would die not having that care. And I want to place that on record. We make no apologies for that. But as it relates to training, the only other option until we improve our clinical side of the infrastructure is to collaborate with other jurisdictions in the training process, cross-border training, that is, Mr. Speaker. This is what I call for in Switzerland, and this is what we have started looking at. Mr. Speaker, we are in discussions right now with the United Kingdom government on a collaborative effort between both countries for the training of specialist nurses. And simply put, what it would mean is that we train for some time here, they go to the UK for additional time, primarily on the clinical side because the UK has the hospitals. And at the end of that process, we both benefit from the value that is created by that trained nurse in that they can work in both locations. We have been engaged in deep discussions around this, Mr. Chairman, and I don't want to make a formal announcement today, but I'm committing to this Honourable House that by the next 2 to 3 months, we will have a position that is likely to see the expansion of training, particularly for critical care nurses, Mr. Speaker. Mr. Speaker, another important aspect to retention. There are a few areas, and let me just say, I know the president of the Nurses Association is here, and she has worked very well with me, and I appreciate her effort and the value of her comments. There are 3 things that are of concern to nurses. Salary, which I will defer to the Minister of Finance and my colleague, Minister Spencer, who is in charge of the public service. So I keep my hands clear of that. The other is security of tenure. The fact is that the establishment in the public system established a number of healthcare workers, nurses included, for a particular point in time based on the population at that time. 1970 odd was the last time. That has changed. So most of our nurses now, Mr. Speaker, a number of them are working on contract. They don't have the permanent position and the benefits that go with it, like pension. This is a major driver for them to seek employment elsewhere where they can earn more. So in consultation with the Ministry of Finance, led by the Minister with responsibility for the public service, Roddy Spencer, and I thank him for it, supported by the Prime Minister and the Cabinet, I'm happy to announce today that we have taken a decision, the Cabinet, to allow for an additional 300 posts to be established for specialist nurses. Effective immediately, with the improviso that once we complete the 10-year strategic plan and we align the HR requirements in an overall way, you will see additional posts being established because those posts are needed. Mr. Speaker, the final area is housing, and we're working on something, and I'll say to the nurses, give us a little time. We will make an announcement in due course to dealing with that. For us, Mr. Speaker, it's not just about the infrastructure, it's about the people. The people are critical to the process, and we have to do more for our healthcare professionals. Mr. Speaker, I close right on time to say the challenges are many. Our health needs are mounting, largely because of lifestyle, inactivity, what we consume. We probably will not be able, Mr. Speaker, to actualize the real budget needed to effectively run our healthcare system in the short term. In the meantime, we continue to do our best. We can to ensure that we are on the right path to quality universal access. I implore the people of this country to start taking their health into their own hands, living better lifestyles, move from the curative paradigm, which is a dependence on the hospital, to the preventative side, because this is what lasting health is all about. As the saying goes, Mr. Speaker, the Jamaica Moves slogan is not just about you are being sick or not. It's about preserving yourself so you have more moments, more memories, more life. And that is what it's all about ultimately, improving the quality of life through taking care of your personal health. Mr. Speaker, may God continue to bless Jamaica, land we love. Thank you. Thank you, thank you.
Mr. Daly. Mr. Daly. The House is still in session. People moving from the gallery should do so quietly, without discussion there. The next speaker will be Mr. Horace Daly. Mr. Hayles.
I'm in my seat. Mr. Speaker, my faith and the good book tells me that the God I serve will never leave me to walk alone. And I must say, in good times and bad, my Savior watches over me. Mr. Speaker, let me thank the people of Western Hanover for electing me to a third term. I want to thank my three councillors also, Councillor Samuels, Councillor Sewell, Councillor Barnes, friends Ashley, caretaker Mrs. Warren, Jav, John, and the entire team. To the most Honourable Portia Simpson Miller, former Prime Minister and party leader, I say with heartfelt gratitude, thank you for your service to party and country. And I personally thank you for giving me the opportunity to serve within your executive as Minister of State in the Ministry of Water, Land, the Environment and Climate Change. To my former minister, Robert Pickersgill, I will say it was indeed a privilege to have served with you. And I humbly say thank you. Mr. Speaker, let me congratulate Dr. Peter Phillips on his ascendancy to the position of party leader and opposition leader. To you, Mr. Speaker, I have known you for find out who your real friends are. Mr. Speaker, It is difficult, but yet, let us pause for a minute to consider the impact on our families, spouse, and children who did not ask to be in the spotlight or glare of public scrutiny, but nevertheless bravely shouldered their responsibility and stood proudly beside us.
Mr. Speaker.
And
Mr.
for
Speaker,
that,
a point of order. I don't know if I'm the only person having the challenge, but we're not hearing the speaker as well as I think we should, and I ask that you invite him to a position where the system is better.
Mr. Hayles, Mr. Hayles, Mr. Hayles, Mr. Hayles, you may come closer to this.
Yeah? Mr. Speaker.
Mr. Hayles, Mr. Hayles, so as not to miss it, so as not to miss any of your time, we are going to.
Mr. Speaker, as I was saying before, but nevertheless, our families stand bravely. Our families stand bravely beside us. And for that, I thank my wife, who's there, and my family for always standing beside me. That's true at times. Mr. Speaker, my presentation today seeks to define and to conceptualize within a broad framework and context how Jamaica, land of wood and water, has arrived at this point where we are today in terms of the provision of land and water for a people who have been independent for 50 years. The people of this country owes the National Water Commission $25 billion. And Mr. Speaker, this debt will never be paid until we collectively, government and opposition, develop the courage to deal with land for the landless and land reform in transforming our society into one that is an ownership society for all. There are more than, Mr. Speaker, there are more than 750 squatters in this country living in informal settlement. And yet, Mr. Speaker, the more and more I look at water, 25 billion versus what, and where we are, if we don't deal with land in terms of providing an avenue where the people of this country can have access to land to live, will forever, this $25 billion will keep growing and growing. Mr. Speaker, the NWC tells us daily that water is life, and we know that's a fact. It is impatient of debate, therefore, that these informal settlers are consuming water daily, and most of them having electricity. It is also impatient of debate that the majority of these informal settlements have informal arrangements for electricity with JPS and not for water with the National Water Commission. But as a middle-aged country, we have been at the wicket for more than 50 years. Is this the legacy we wish to leave behind, where more than 45% of the people in this country does not have any title? 45%. I hear Minister Montague speak about it last week also. Mr. Speaker, when will we say enough is enough and buckle down to do the necessary work to ensure a brighter tomorrow for all? Mr. Speaker, it is no secret that the only beneficiaries of land reform in this country are the lawyers and the surveyors. Only beneficiary. I used to hear Minister Pickersgill speak about that daily. Mr. Speaker, as a former Minister of Utilities, you would be aware that to become a customer of the NWC or the Jamaica Public Service, you either have to provide proof of ownership or permission from the landowner. And oftentimes, Mr. Speaker, you can't get any permission to regularize yourself in these informal settlements. The JPS, however, got real smart, Mr. Speaker, and start regularizing themselves because they were losing billions. And for some strange reason, the NWC cannot take the same approach in providing water in these informal settlements to our people. But they have water in there. Mr. Speaker, I know you're not a betting man. But what are the odds that either the government or the private owner would provide assistance to get water into these communities? What? So in the end, Mr. Speaker, almost half of our people who need land and water are faced with a decision no Jamaican should ever have to make, whether to continue the cycle of generation of ancestors, to squat on crown lands, or to get access and electricity by any means necessary. Mr. Speaker, I'm coming to that too. I'm touching that today. Mr. Speaker, for many of us, our journey started from Africa, whereas you know and would appreciate somewhere chief also. Centuries later, we find ourselves with a third of our people still not yet settled. For every formal settlement, whether housing scheme or private dwelling premises, there's an informal settlement right around the corner. And we must ask ourselves, how do we end the seemingly never-ending cycle that our people live and experience daily? Mr. Speaker, being a young democracy is no excuse for having failed in the mandate to fully settle all our people and to provide full access to land and water. Another question we must ask ourselves, Mr. Speaker, is whether Jamaica will continue to be known as the land of wood and water when our people of our island suffer and agonize each and every day for water and land. Imagine for a second, Mr. Speaker, in 1655, the British took Jamaica from the Spanish. And by the 18th century, Jamaica was the wealthiest colony in this hemisphere, producing more British millionaires than any other colony where the slave trade was happening at the time. In those days, the who of who in the British Parliament, both the House of Commons and the House of Lords, were Jamaican slave owners and traders. Mr. Speaker, if you look at the great estates and if you consider the Earl of Harewood, a Jamaican slave owner who became the third richest man in Britain and who, because of his wealth, married into the royal family, was a Jamaican slave owner also. Fast forward 300 years later, we had plowed the land, tilled the soil, watered our master's field, stayed in the plantation shed, and in doing so created multimillionaires in England. We then signed an agreement making us an independent and free people, allowing those who enslaved us to walk away. But yet, we tell our people, if you live on crown lands and by no fault of your own, you must wait 60 years. You must wait 60 years if you plan to acquire the land by route of adverse possession, or worse, we create obstacles in sentencing our people to a life of squatting and stealing water, when all they seek is a piece of land to call home, a piece of the rock. Mr. Speaker, most Jamaicans who live within these informal settlements will tell you that they want to pay their water bill, they want to pay their land taxes, but will never do so in their lifetime. Their children come and see mommy and daddy not paying for water. They don't pay their land taxes, they don't pay for electricity. Then mommy and daddy turn grandparents, a never-ending cycle. Mr. Speaker, while we await and fight for reparation for our people, it is incumbent upon government and all of us within this house to finally settle all our people. Not just because we know for sure that if we don't, the NWC will never fulfill its mandate, but because we know the journey from Africa to the shores of the Caribbean has been a long one, and it's time for our people to rest. Enough of these refugee kind of thing where they move from one squatter settlement to another. It's time, Mr. Speaker, for it to end. And equally, Mr. Speaker, it is the right thing to do. And if we are far likely to advance progress and prosperity for all our people. This must be the progressive agenda, to own a piece of land, to call home with the access to water and utilities. Mr. Speaker, there are several immediate benefits in doing the right thing, and I will tell you what. Non-revenue water, that is water produced, treated by the NWC, but which is not collected for, is at a high of over 70%. And you will never see a meaningful decrease without the transfer of consumers to customers. This, of course, does not absolve the NWC from its duty to fix leak and to replace rotten pipes. Mr. Speaker, when we were the government of the day, there was a robust campaign to reduce NRW, to improve energy efficiency. This was championed through the K-Factor program, which is in its heyday had more than 100 approved projects. Projects which, if implemented, would have significantly reduced the level of NRW we are now seeking to do so today. But there are other benefits, Mr. Speaker. Imagine for a minute if you had those 750,000 squatters out there paying land taxes. There would be no need for the government to raise taxes on land. So they live on the government land for free. The government don't try to regularize them the way that we should. We should. And in the end, the cost of water keeps moving up. So we're at 25 billion now. They're living there already, you know. But the only people in that whole scheme that is making the money is the attorneys, the surveyors, and at the end of the day, people wait for 30, 40 years, generation after generation, and still can't own a piece of the rock. Mr. Speaker, the time has come. The time has come for the majority of our people to finally shake off the shackles and walk freely from their own land to the government tax office to pay their taxes, to pay their water bill, and to pay their light bill. Time has come. I can hear the critics already, Mr. Speaker. I can hear the critics already saying, we have been self-governing since 1962. Successive governments should have dealt with the issue of land and water a long time ago. But how do you go about that when our wealth went back to the motherland? How do you? How do you go about that when upon creating an independent Jamaica, the majority of our citizens could not read? Close to 80% could not read. How do you go about that when you only had 2 hospitals, no infrastructure, no sustainable development in place of the birth of an independent new nation? How, Mr. Speaker? So, Mr. Speaker, while we went off on our journey to create a society that protects our citizens with basic rights as they pursue their dreams, we have left far too many behind when it comes to land for the landless and water, which is life. We have left too many people behind. Mr. Speaker, my presentation today does not seek to beg a blight or cry for pity on ourselves, because we are all to be blamed for the lack of vision and commitment, but it is a call to action. Action, Mr. Speaker, and delivering on the promise that all our people must be settled with basic infrastructure, water, land, housing, and electricity. Let me again focus, Mr. Speaker, my attention on the NWC, which in its current format and dispensation is bankrupt of ideas and will never be able to deliver water to the people of Jamaica. NWC? Yes. When I was Minister of State, I often read the clean editorials about the NWC, and usually the discussion in the ministry was, if you privatize a part of the NWC, or if you privatize the NWC, if you privatize the NWC, the people of this country, will pay more. Mr. Speaker, truth be told, for every day I spent in that ministry and observed the operation of the NWC, I became more convinced that the people are paying more for water and will continue to do so until the government becomes serious about public-private partnership. Mr. Speaker, government cannot fix it. In the private sector, you would say it's throwing good money after bad money. And we continue each year, whatever is proposed in the budget, whether it's $8 or $10 billion, we as a government continue to throw good money after bad money. And it's hard to understand. It's hard to understand you won't regularize someone to live on a piece of property, on land. But at the same day, the person have water, using the water, using the electricity. So the government is losing both ways anyway. Mr. Speaker, how can you have a bloated bureaucratic agency with approximately 17 vice president and assistant vice president, 2,000 employees, a president, a board chairman, and cannot fulfill its mandate? It is beginning to resemble a feeding trough. More than a critic, Mr. Speaker, it is beginning to resemble a feeding trough, more than a critical agency with a mandate to quench the thirst of a nation, hungry for development and thirsty for basic comfort of water. Members of this Honourable House would be aware that if you ask the NWC the percentage of Jamaicans household with water, they will tell you over 60%. Yet a third or more of our people in the informal settlement live without water. Mr. Speaker, it has always been the goal and the mission and the mandate of the NWC to serve 85% of the population, with the remaining 15% be served by a combination including minor rural supplies. But in the interim, Mr. Speaker, the entire country suffers from inadequate water supply, leaking pipes, malfunctioning sewage plants, and the cycle continues. This scenario will never change, Mr. Speaker, unless we aggressively prepare ourselves for salvation. Yes, Mr. Speaker, salvation in setting all our people free. Mr. Speaker, it requires a fresh look at new options, particularly a model that involves the private sector. Mr. Speaker, in conclusion, I recall attending a board meeting with the NWC, and the question was asked by my senior minister at the time, what was the level of disconnection in the country? And the answer was, it was 100,000 customers were disconnected. He then asked the question, how many was reconnected? And the NWC could not answer the question. Could not, Mr. Speaker. Now, and the then minister asked the question, then if water is life, how can they live without water? Mr. Speaker, the answer is when the NWC disconnects, they walk right back out and they connect, they reconnect. Because there is no other option in terms of getting approval to go get it the legitimate way. And I think this is something the government should look at. In closing, Mr. Speaker, let me say to the government, time come. Prime Minister, time come. Time come to provide a broader vision in allowing all our people to finally be settled with water and land. Time come to find the root cause as to why we were once that bright beacon on the hill shining for Great Britain and not our people. Time come to know out of many one people we're all linked together on the same journey for progress. And time come in knowing that the urgency, I knew before too. I speak about it before too. And time coming knowing that the urgency of time waits for no man or government. So with the wind at our backs, let's summon that great Jamaican spirit to finish that race and settle all our people. Because in the end, God gave us life. So if water is life, let's once and for all give all our people life. I thank you.
Mr. Speaker, I ask that the sectoral debate be suspended until next Tuesday.
Members, the motion is that the sectoral debate be suspended until next Tuesday. Those in favor? Those against?
Mr. Speaker, is not intended to do any further business for today, so I ask that those be suspended next Tuesday, then May the 9th. Be adjourned until next Tuesday, the 9th of May.
Members, the motion is that the House be adjourned until next Tuesday, May 9 at 2 p.m. Those in favor? Those against?
Be careful who you let into your home. Remember the ratings.
A and X are no-nos. A and X are no-nos. PG is maybe. G is good to go.
Protect your children. Lock out harmful content. A reminder from the Broadcasting Commission.
Make it a new day, yeah.
Hurricanes can strike at any time. In the event of one, be prepared to act quickly. If a hurricane watch or warning has been issued, review your home disaster